Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Quarantine Leadership Series. I am here with great friends, and we're doing it a little different this time because we're all sharing a drink of bourbon with each other tonight. And seems to be, we're going to talk about how bourbon and leadership kind of go together, maybe.
Yeah.
But just great friends that we've all shared this affection for bourbon, but we also want to talk about leadership tonight. So we'll start with you. We'll let them introduce themselves and share what they're drinking. Chad, we'll start with you.
Hey everybody, I'm Chad Hart. I'm from Hawkins County, Kentucky. I live in Owensboro, but the Hawkins County YMCA. Been CEO there for just about 5 years. And tonight my drink of choice is, and I just finished the bottle, Yellow Banks Bourbon from the Green River Distilling Company, located here in Owensboro. Also one of the oldest distilleries ever. There's your history lesson.
Does Kentucky, do they know about bourbon in Kentucky? Yeah.
It's relatively new. It's like the world of microbreweries. It's a pop-up.
Yeah.
It's like wine in North Carolina. It's
There you go. Yeah.
Jay.
Hey, good evening. My name is Jay Park. I'm the CEO of the YMCA of Central Virginia. We're located in Lynchburg. And tonight I'm drinking some Basil Hayden. I think it's from Kentucky.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Good. Our bourbon expert, Carrie, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Carrie Collins, and I am our Senior Vice President and Chief Advancement Officer for the YMCA of Northwest North Carolina in Winston-Salem. And I am drinking Eagles Rare in my lovely hockey cup from Bar Shot Creations.
That's great. Who is a sponsor of this podcast? And
Brought to you by.
Tag them in. Trey.
Good evening. I'm Trey Oakley. I'm CEO of the Williams YMCA located in Linville, North Carolina. And tonight was a good night for a little Pappy 12-year, but my bottle was empty. So we're drinking Old Forester this evening.
And that's great. That's great. And I'm drinking E.H. Taylor, which was a great present from my wife. Makes me easy to shop for at Christmas. I put a couple of my gifts there over my shoulder. We each, before I hit record, we're each showing the stuff that we have around. And does anybody, Carrie, and I see Carrie on social media will talk about what she's bought, but is there anything special that you bought and unique and where, and you're trying, and how do you buy any bottle that you're especially excited about?
Yeah, I probably have a couple. And, I read a story about how I was first kind of brought into bourbon. It was a couple years ago at a YMCA CMO CDO conference that we actually held in Louisville, Kentucky. And Andy Pierce, for anybody that knows him, was he is like the equivalent of a wine steward, but for bourbon, and I forget what they're called. And so we literally sat down and did bourbon tastings. And I didn't think I was going to make it through Woodford Reserve. Just the heat of it, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to die. But quickly fell in love with it. And now anytime we go somewhere, it is, I try to find a liquor store that is ideally not state run like they are in North Carolina. So we can quickly pick it up. And I travel a lot with my boys in hockey. And so when I was in Charleston, I actually picked up a bottle of 12-year Pappy. So Trey, except I haven't opened it yet. I'm afraid to open it. And then I've also gotten bottles of Blanton's kind of along the way. And right now, every time I come home from a tournament or somewhere, I try to pick up a bottle that we don't have. And so it's been fun at night, just my husband and I grabbing a glass of bourbon, kind of rehashing the day. And I've turned him onto it before he didn't like to drink it. And so that's kind of how I got into bourbon and lots of the ones that I picked up.
Great, that's awesome. Chad shared, you've probably got, you told me you've got a unique bottle or two also that you won't open.
Yes. Matter of fact, my passion for bourbon and whiskey is rooted in historical references. And I think there's a huge heritage connected to bourbon, especially in Kentucky. It's like folklore of how they used to be connected to the land and how they used the limestone water and all this stuff. Well, so a little backstory, this is going to get it deep for just a second, but my wife lost her dad when she was very young. And so he had 3 daughters. Well, fast forward, I have 3 daughters, and I want things that I can pass on to my daughters that are really unique to me. Her dad was a massive hunter. So he had Ducks Unlimited guns, things like that. I don't have that kind of money. I got some bourbon kind of money sometimes. So what you're about to see, there's only 50 of these in the entire world. And I have 3 of them because I have 3 daughters and each daughter had to have one. So this is a Maker's Mark bottle. And Margie was the lady in the Founders Edition that came up with the red wax top. This is a hand-painted logo. I got 3 of them, see? It's a hand-painted logo on the Founders Edition. And there's only 50 in the world. I have 3 of them, and it's hand-painted by a local artist in Owensboro, Kentucky named Aaron Kaiser. Me and my wife were lucky enough to get 2 of them in line at the release. And then I realized, oh my goodness, I need a 3rd one for that last daughter. She'll never forgive me. That's what my brain's telling me. And so I ended up picking one up secondary market. I'm not going to discuss price, but let's just say we have thousands of dollars of liquor sitting right here. And so when I told my daughters I was doing this, I said, listen, you cannot come into the office. They're outside of the case. If you touch the computer cord, you're going to knock it over and daddy's going to have a crying spell. So just don't come in here. But, I'd say my next to last one, and I got to invite y'all to Kentucky. I'll do the bourbon tour with y'all. Knob Creek, pretty inexpensive bottle, but you can actually fill it yourself, label it. And when you dip it, you can't see this, but that's my thumbprint. And then I had it engraved. So I have these bottles I'm never going to open, but I'm hoping one day my daughters can look back and say, he was thinking of me when I was 1, 2, 3 years old and did this for me. So, but I have my daily drinkers, but we'll get into that later.
That's great. That's great. That's my mistake is I want to taste them. And so many of these good ones that you're supposed to just have the bottle, but I like to taste them. So I don't have a great palate. So I really, we'll do the blind taste test, and I don't do real well on that, but I like to crack them open and taste them.
Yeah.
Is anybody done? I mean, you did Louisville. Anybody done a bourbon tour? Jay or Trey, have y'all done a bourbon tour? Carrie? Trey,
No,
you done?
but
I really recommend them. If you haven't done them, go do them. They're so fun.
Absolutely.
I'm ready. I'm coming, Chad. When are you there?
Hey, so funny story. Nat Otten, a North Carolina guy. I'm sure y'all know Nat.
Yeah.
Oh,
Nat's actually coming to do a thing for me. We're doing a culture retreat at my wine, and Nat is going to run it for me. I'm going to shower him in bourbon supplies and
Cool.
promised him a bourbon tour. He's also a history buff, so we're interweaving. We're meshing really well.
Well, Nat's going to watch this, but Nat's not cool enough to drink bourbon. So, I mean, you're wasting your time.
Yeah. Well, he's got friends, though, right?
Yeah. He'll donate it. He'll give it to a poker. He's that cool.
Yeah. That's my plug.
That's
Trey, you've got some good bottles too. So, I mean, do you have a collection in your collection?
Yeah, but man, I don't want to follow that. That's a tough
right.
one. I had about 60 bottles to my right that we've put them mostly in Tupperware, and now my house is properly decorated. But I did pull one out just really quick that Appalachian just had done from Woodford. There was a sponsor that bought a barrel specifically for ASU. I was fortunate enough to get my hands on one of those here recently. So that's one that'll never be opened. I don't have very many that haven't been.
Yeah.
At this point. So took a tour down at Willett Distillery and hung out there for a little while. Did a treasure hunt from here down to Louisville, visited all the local ABC stores, and you're always looking for Blanton's or Weller or, some things along those lines. And man, the most fruitful place we could find what we were looking for were gas stations and Walgreens. Crazy, right? I never
Really?
thought. We went to this liquor store. We asked for where we could find Weller. He goes, man, go about a mile on the right. There's going to be a Walgreens. They always have it. And that's where we found the majority of it was Walgreens.
I can only afford the little mini bottle of Blanton that I'm saving for a special occasion to open and drink. And so I'm going to have a hard time picking it the fun to spend a lot of money on bourbon. But let's talk leadership. There is a lot of parallel. I was thinking about this.
We got to find out what Jay's drinking. Did we do him? Did we do
Jay?
Jay?
I'm sorry. What are you drinking?
Yeah, I've got Basil Hayden.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
I mean, I've got a Blanton's. My brother-in-law got me into this probably about 6 months ago. I went to his house for something, and I thought it was his wife's. And I said, hey, and he got me, and I was like, I started collecting. So I haven't been in this very long. So you can see I
Yeah.
kind of have gone hog wild. So I've got a Blanton's, you know.
Where did you get your Blantons? Did you find it in store or order or what?
Give me for Christmas. I was like, and I gave him some Maker's Mark limited edition, nothing like what he gave me. So I'm trying to collect it, but in Virginia, it's just hard to come by. And they had in November, they have a special release day where they have you can get one. And I didn't think, I blew leaves that day. My brother-in-law went and got him whatever was left, and I didn't go, but because there was 50 to 75 people in the line, and they got there really early, and it was cold. And I heard somebody drove down from Canada and bought one of them off of somebody for like $1,200 because it's special release. And Virginia is controlled by the ABC of Virginia, so I like going when I'm in Tennessee or somewhere else. You can get some more. You get more selections.
Yeah, Carrie's taught me that watching her on social media, that you got to look when you travel.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because North Carolina, North Carolina's been a shortage. If you, at Christmas, when I'd go into the liquor store, 40% empty shelves. You just couldn't find things. It was
It's
just
been crazy.
Exactly.
Cam, if you don't mind, let me jump in because there is one bottle that I do want to share because Chad will love this because there's a story that goes along with it from being a history buff. So I have this bottle and you guys are going to be like, that's a bottle of bourbon. So can you see it?
Wow.
Okay.
Special
So
decanters.
It is.
I love
So
that.
it is Jim Beam that was aged 10 months that was purchased sometime in the late 70s or the early 80s. And it was given to me by my grant writer. There were 15 cars that were made. I'm sorry. So it's a full train and there were 15
Wow.
cars that were made. My grant writer and got it from his grandfather who got them when they were in that time period. So late 70s and early 80s. His grandfather passed away. And so he inherited these 15 train cars. And when he hit $2
You have
million,
all 15? He has all 15?
he got all 15 of them.
Holy cow.
I know. And so when he hit $2 million in grants, which was the most kind of grants that we were able to bring into our association and his highest number that he had, he actually gave me one of the train cars. And he said, you just have to, he goes, part of it is grandfathers. May we honor them and feed them. And so that is his saying when you have a drink out of the bourbon train car. And I'm still scared to take a drink out of it. So it is one of the ones that I will probably never touch. But it is one of the ones that just means the world to me because of the story that goes behind it and the history that is in that train car.
Man, that's great. You
That
guys
is
have shared
really
such
cool.
great stories. It is a great gift to share. And that's what I love about bourbon is that when you watch the documentaries, as Chad said, there's such great history to it. And then it's just really about sharing it with friends and just spending that time with friends. I've been fascinated back at Christmas, and I heard about it here before and bought a bottle, really started looking at the Uncle Nearest story and just reading on that and just listening to some podcasts on. It's just fascinating to hear the history of that. And so just let's talk a little leadership with you guys. Jay,
Yes.
long time number 2 with your organization. Last 2-3 years, you've been the CEO. Tell us about what were the biggest challenges in that transition?
I think the biggest thing you move from being an operator to starting to set the vision of where you want to go. What do you see the needs of the community? How do you set the tone for your other leaders? So I see that as been one of the biggest challenges. And as I've headed into a capital campaign over the last 7 months, I realized that I don't have an operator, a chief operating officer. So I'm out looking for one. And so it's something that I see as I've had to get out of the operating mode and get more into setting the vision for what we want to do, what we need to do to fulfill the needs of our community. So I love what I do. I am really enjoying sharing the message and setting vision and doing those things. But I think that is the largest or the biggest change I would say comes from, changing seats.
Yeah. So me, Chad, Trey, we run small operations. biggest challenge for you, Chad or Trey, and just being focused on philanthropy and development and fundraising in a small shop?
Trey, you want to go first?
Trey, go first.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's, and Cam's familiar with our wide story. I mean, we're in a community here in the mountains with less than 18,000 people. So membership certainly does not do it as far as the bottom line goes every year. So the biggest challenge with our Y has been raising those funds to the annual campaign just to ensure that our Y can continue to function on the day to day. And that number runs up to about $500,000. So it's been a continual struggle. We're finally in a good place now, and have actually started some capital work to add a second branch to our operation in a neighboring county, and have really just seen, and Carrie probably knows this better than I do, just the relationships that we've been able to build with people, and the stories we've been able to tell, and draw on those individuals in to just have a heart and a passion for what we're doing. Every year, fortunately, it gets a little bit easier getting those people on board. And I came into RY, I started there 11 years ago. I've been the CEO for 9, and I was a PE teacher prior. So not much fundraising experience. So it's been a fly it while you build it kind of situation for us.
Yeah, that's what I heard earlier. We're flying it while we're building it, and the plane's on fire.
It's on fire, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Chad, what about you? What are your challenges in Kentucky?
Well, for the state of Kentucky, it's pretty wide because we have associations as large as Louisville, Lexington, and actually one of the nation's smallest Ys in Union County, Kentucky, in Morganfield. So, but for me specifically, I'm kind of like you, Trey. I grew up on the wellness side. It's not exactly PE teaching, but it's wellness, and I had no intention to go this route. So, literally, I learned a lot of my leadership and how I'm working today from learning what not to do from others and just not doing that part. And, the pandemic's brought challenges, but we've adapted to those, and everybody has, and, we've pivoted, and we've used that word a lot lately. I would say, honestly, my biggest challenge in the small world operations is kind of honestly what Jay said, learning how not to be an operator, or understanding the balance between operating and vision setting, and understanding that, being in an office is just as important as making sure the parking lot's clean, like being in an office with the donor or someone with a collaboration. And you've got to have a healthy balance, but there's only so many hours in the day, and you're raising a family. So just the balance of being strategic and visionary, that's huge. And there's not a good ratio to it. It's kind of one day you may be all operations, but the next day I got to be all strategic. And you got to tell people which hat you're wearing too. Where's the priority?
I picked up some bad habits being in my office too much during the pandemic. I think, because you're isolating, and you're telling everybody what to do. And then 12 months later, you haven't been out, and you're not calling on people as much. You're talking like this versus sitting over a drink, a glass of wine or a bourbon or a cup of coffee, or in my community, a barbecue sandwich. So, Carrie, speaking on behalf of all the advancement directors, I love that. It changes every class.
Right?
Yeah. So what do development directors wish CEOs would do more of?
Well, I'm going to phrase it kind of this way a little bit, is in thinking back pre-COVID. So development, you had your annual campaign, you had kind of the healthy push and pull between where you prioritize your time, is it operations? Is it, what are you focusing in on? The pandemic has really given us an opportunity to shine a light on the work that we do outside of our branches, in our community relationships. And people stayed with us because of that work, not because we ran an amazing gym and an amazing basketball court and in a super clean, in a super pool. I shouldn't say clean, but they're all clean, but cool. And so I think for my message, and for development directors, the CEOs coming out of COVID, that hopefully we're getting right to, is don't forget that. because that really helped keep our doors open during that time, And so don't forget it, and don't automatically pivot back to where are we in membership, and I'm going to focus in on operations and what is wellness going into, that spot where a lot of CEOs are comfortable. Get comfortable being uncomfortable and staying in the community development space, in the philanthropy space, continuing those relationships and expanding them even more into the future, and don't just pivot back. So, and it's not just about annual, it's about the work that we do in all of our associations, no matter where you are in the country, because that work really is what sustained us through COVID. So don't forget about it.
That's just great advice. If you're listening, that's worth the 20 minutes that you've listened here.
No doubt.
Jay, I mean, we're going to close this down, but how do you balance operations, running day to day, dealing with the day-to-day stuff, and also spending time in vision casting and capital development? How are you balancing that?
I'm sorry, for me?
No, for Jay.
Oh, for Jay, sorry.
If my computer dinged, I was like, he's saying, well, it's something that I see as huge. And what I need to do is setting that vision and working with collaborative partners. I love what Carrie said. And that's what I have seen in the last 6 months, is where I need to be is, or where I need to spend a majority of my time is probably, I know it's not in operations. It's got to be in those areas of moving the why forward as that community partner, that collaborative, that, whatever it happens to be, whatever's needed. So that's where I've got to put myself at. And, I see that as just so important in my role. So I think it's one thing that I'm trying to put myself more in now than I was ever. And I just see it being a very important part of my day-to-day thing. So I've got to get away from that, and I'm trying to pass that baton on to my staff and grow my leaders to say, hey, you've got to make these decisions without bringing everything to me. So that's kind of what I'm seeing and what we need.
We have to grow our people, and then and speaking for myself, we have to trust our people too. I mean,
yeah,
to be able to just say, hey, I'm going to push away from that side and I'm going to focus on this. I need the triggers in my life that make me do that, because you come into work and you get sucked into it. You just get pulled into the day-to-day, especially in a smaller community when you don't have a lot of advancement directors and HR directors, and you get sucked into the day-to-day grind of things. But we need to find ways to create these opportunities.
Because I think, and Cam, and to Jay's point too, because it's creating our next generation of leaders. And, we've got to be willing to turn the reins over, but also know that they're probably going to stub toes at some point. But also with the stubbing of toes, to understand that the work we do is incredibly important. But we're not curing cancer. And so to understand that, and to put life just into perspective. And that's how leaders below us are going to grow is, I'm sure everybody on this call has learned far more from their mistakes than they have anything that's gone wrong. I know I have learned far more from my mistakes. And so we can't forget that and understand and give grace to those that when they do make mistakes.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Yes.
Before I hit record, we were all talking about the NATO conference. And Carrie, are you on that advisory board?
I am. So we would love to see you at NATO 2022, Tampa, Florida. We're so excited to be back in person now. For the first time in over 2 years. So great educational opportunities for both staff and volunteers. So just encourage everyone to come if you can make it work. And I'm glad that everybody on this is a
NATO. Will learn so. You will learn so much.
It is a great time.
Yes.
Yeah, it really is. And that's always a good time for me to really set an agenda. It helps me focus just on philanthropy for those couple of days. I'll have volunteers and staff with me for us to get excited about it. But really, I come back rejuvenated and hopefully create some better habits, moving forward. So So 2 challenges for the people that are watching this. One, if you come to NATO, I'll buy you a drink come up to me and tell me you watched this and that you love the Detroit Lions, and I'll buy you a drink. If you email me and tell me your favorite bourbon, we'll put you in a raffle and we'll send you some swag too. So I've ended a couple of these with a raffle and people win. So just make sure, but email me your favorite bourbon and we'll do that. But I appreciate you great friends sharing. Y'all have great stories about your bourbon stories, also sharing your leadership gifts and talents. And for everybody, I hope you'll subscribe to this YouTube channel. And then also remember to always lead with love. Thank y'all for being on the call with us.
Thank you.
you.